Hey everybody, this is day 8 of my fundraiser for the Norwegian Refugee Council. This is the AMA video series where you ask me questions and I try my best to answer them. I answer one question every day from right now all the way up until October 17th, which is my 40th birthday. All right, on to today's question, which comes from Mahmood. He says, what kind of developers will be most successful in the future of WordPress? The ones that have more JavaScript skills than PHP, or the ones that have more PHP skills than JavaScript, with condition that they both know WordPress very well? This is a good question, and it's a good question because of this shift of focus. A couple of years ago, Matt Mullenweg, the head of the WordPress project, famously said, learn JavaScript deeply at WordCamp US. And since then, there's been a lot of talk about WordPress becoming more JavaScript centric. And that is true in a sense. I mean, Gutenberg, the new editor interface in WordPress, will be based on JavaScript. We also have a full-fledged REST API, which is meant to be used in JavaScript applications. And in the general web community, we have a lot of focus on this idea of JavaScript client-side applications that run rather than having server-side rendering, which is what you see in PHP. So it's a fair question. Should you focus more on JavaScript than PHP if you're coming into WordPress today? The answer is a little bit complicated because, as I've explained previously in this series, WordPress itself runs PHP. WordPress will remain a PHP application for the foreseeable future, and everything that happens internally in WordPress is still PHP. Even the JavaScript applications that are built on top of WordPress are still converted into PHP, and then WordPress runs PHP on the back end. That's because WordPress is a server-side rendered application that runs PHP. So to figure out how WordPress itself works, you need to know PHP. Now, when you work on the front end of WordPress, so themes and plugins, you also work with this WordPress abstraction language I call the templating language in WordPress, which is an abstraction of PHP that has semantic functions that wrap PHP functions and do things in the WordPress way. Now, when you use JavaScript, you also have an abstraction language inside JavaScript for just WordPress, which hooks into these PHP functions. So, should you learn PHP or JavaScript if you want to focus on WordPress development in the future? It's actually more of a question of what kind of WordPress developer do you want to be, or what kind of web developer do you want to be? Because right now it's very trendy to build all these JavaScript-enabled front-end applications that run on the client side and do all sorts of fancy stuff. However, there's also this big push for what's called resilient web design, where you serve the client with a finished HTML page with JavaScript and CSS and everything built on top, which is the opposite of these client-side rendering applications. So what we end up with is this question of, where do you think the web is going to be in the not too distant future? Is it going to be resilient and based on server-side rendering, or is it going to be more dynamic and based on JavaScript rendering? And the answer right now, if I were to answer that, would be probably somewhere in between, meaning the person who will have the most success with WordPress or just web development in general is one that understands the core elements, so HTML, CSS, JavaScript, REST APIs and all that stuff really well, and it's able to build things based on those technologies. And inside the WordPress community, the person that will succeed the most is someone who understands all of it. So is able to use PHP where PHP is best suited, is able to use JavaScript where JavaScript is best suited, is able to apply design thinking and focus on accessibility and think about progressive modern standards and all this kind of stuff. So there is no one solution here. You can't say, I'm going to be a JavaScript developer and that'll be fine, or I'm going to be a PHP developer and that's going to be fine. You need to learn it all. That's just the nature of the beast today. That's it. So this is, like I said, the fundraiser for the Norwegian Refugee Council. I am doing an AMA session now until October 17th, and you can send in questions if you want me to answer them. You can also donate to the fundraiser by going to the fundraising page. In fact, everything is captured there, both the questions and the fundraiser. So go contribute to the fundraiser, ask me a question, and it may get answered in one of these videos. Until tomorrow, have a good evening.